Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into, well, one of the most absolutely fascinating intellectual frameworks in human history. We're looking at a guy who was literally declared the wisest person in all of Athens, yet he walked around telling everyone he knew absolutely nothing. I mean, it sounds like a total contradiction, right? But this historical mystery, it's actually the key to a deeply practical mastery of our own minds. We're talking about Socrates, and we're going to explore how his ancient method of questioning can, quite frankly, dramatically upgrade your critical thinking today. I know that I know nothing. That is the legendary Socratic paradox. Now, fun fact, Socrates didn't actually write this down himself. Actually, scratch that, he never wrote anything down. We know about his era-defining thinking mostly through his student, Plato. So, during Socrates' life, the Oracle of Delphi proclaimed him the wisest of all people. But Socrates, who regularly declared his absolute ignorance, just couldn't accept that. So he set out on a quest to prove the Oracle wrong. He figured, hey, if I can just find someone wiser than me, the Oracle's mistaken. But what he discovered instead, it literally changed the course of human thought.
Part 1. The Art of Annoying People. Bottomless Questioning in Ancient Athens.
Okay, let's dive into this. Socrates went straight to the top. He started approaching the most influential and supposedly wise Athenians. You know, the statesmen, the famous poets, the celebrated teachers. To really grasp how this felt for them, I want you to imagine a relentlessly curious child asking why after every single explanation an adult gives. They're not satisfied with surface-level answers. They want foundational truth, not just some endless chain of, well, unsatisfactory reasoning. Now, imagine that child is actually a famously ugly, fully grown man questioning the most powerful politicians in Athens. He exposed that their supposed wisdom was built on incredibly fragile assumptions. Turns out, nobody really knew anything about what they claimed to know.
But, as you might guess, annoying powerful people with bottomless questioning has consequences. Socrates made authority figures look pretty foolish, so by 399 BCE, he was accused of corrupting the minds of the youth and introducing new deities. He was put on trial and, tragically, sentenced to death. It was a harsh punishment just for asking questions, for sure, but it absolutely cemented his legacy as philosophy's brilliant martyr.
Part 2. Anatomy of Socratic Questioning, the Dialectic Method. So what exactly made his conversations so powerful and, frankly, so dangerous? Well, Socrates was highly aware of how self-deceptive human thought can be. So he used a highly disciplined, systematic approach to help people uncover it. This dialectic method basically operates in two distinct phases. On one side, we have the destructive process. This is where ideas you formerly held dear are shown to be totally illogical. The person he's talking to often ends up completely baffled, and their worst opinions are just eradicated. I mean, in Plato's dialect Meno, someone even compares Socrates to a torpedo fish that benumbs anyone it touches. But then comes the constructive process. Once you realize your ignorance, you're encouraged to replace that flawed thinking with justifiable, logical, and just fundamentally better opinions. You strip away the bad to build the good. Let's move to and see how this builds into an active practice. We're going to run through a rapid-fire sequence of foundational Socratic questions. First up, what is your purpose? Look, all thought reflects some kind of agenda. You simply cannot fully understand someone's thought, and yes, that includes your own, until you understand the agenda behind it. By simply asking, what's our central aim in this line of thought, Socratic dialogue immediately starts uncovering the hidden motivations driving our beliefs. Next question, what are your assumptions? This keeps that destructive process going in a really disciplined way. What are we taking for granted here? Are those presuppositions actually valid? When you actively question the axiom someone is basing their entire argument on, you strip away all the fluff. You literally force the brain to recognize the potentially flawed nature of its own reasoning. It can be super uncomfortable, remember the torpedo fish, but it is absolutely necessary for clarity.
Finally, what is the evidence? Now, this is the engine of the constructive process. Once we've cleared away all those bad assumptions, we need data, facts, and observations to build new, justifiable opinions. Seeking hard evidence moves us from that kind of fragmented, lazy thinking into a realm of deep, conceptual understanding. It forces us to distinguish what we actually know from what we just suppose we know.
Part 3. The Mechanics of Thought. Building the Modern Toolkit.
Now, Socratic questioning didn't just die in ancient Greece. Over 2,000 years later, the profound doubting he set in motion paved the way for thinkers like René Descartes and his famous, "I think, therefore I am." Today, organizations like the Foundation for Critical Thinking have taken this abstract brilliance and anchored it directly into a modern toolkit. They've turned Socratic dialogue into the literal nuts and bolts of how the mind works. It shows us that to formulate questions that probe deeply, we first have to understand the actual literal parts of thinking.
So the crucial point is that our success in thinking depends entirely on our ability to break the whole into parts. We've got to actively question our purpose, our point of view, our assumptions, and the implications of our thoughts. Doing this establishes a whole new, additional level of thinking. We aren't just having thoughts anymore, We are actively monitoring, assessing, and reconstituting our thinking in a much more rational direction.
All of these tools, all of these relentless why questions, they all build towards one ultimate goal: developing a powerful inner voice of reason. It's kind of hard to imagine being a good critical thinker without the disposition to question deeply, right? By internalizing the Socratic method, you train your mind to guide itself away from the tremendous trap of self-deception and move toward true intellectual autonomy. You stop relying on tradition or custom or just what powerful people tell you, and you start reasoning through life's complexities completely on your own. Part 4. The Examined Life, Formulating Principles to Live By. Mastering this method isn't just a mental exercise. It's about developing profound intellectual integrity. It's about aligning our private deeds with our public words. You see, Socrates was always conversing about human beings, examining what's noble or just, really trying to help his students formulate solid principles by which to live. And this brings us to what is perhaps the most famous and brilliant epitaph in all of philosophy: "The unexamined life is not worth living." It just perfectly encapsulates the lasting value of relentlessly probing beneath the surface of things. Even when staring down a death sentence, Socrates firmly believed that living without digging into the why of our existence was a tragedy. And that leaves us with this final challenge for you to take away. I want you to look at the beliefs you hold most dearly about yourself, your work, your society. Are they built on solid evidence or just comfortable assumptions? If Socrates were standing in front of you right now, playing the torpedo fish, what questions would he ask to benumb your certainty? Take a moment, step back, and ask yourself, how will you actively examine your own thinking today?